Welcome to another episode of Unsolved Cases. I'm your host, Larry Hunter, and today we're diving deep into one of the most haunting and widely covered missing person cases of the 21st century, the disappearance of 3-year-old Madeleine McCann. For over 17 years, this case has captivated the world, spawned countless theories, and left investigators across 3 countries searching for answers. Today, we'll walk through every twist, every lead, and every heartbreaking detail of a story that began as a family vacation and became an international mystery. Picture this. It's late April 2007, and the McCann family is preparing for what should have been the perfect spring getaway. Kate and Jerry McCann, both successful doctors from Rothley in Leicestershire, England, were taking their 3 young children, 3-year-old Madeleine and 2-year-old twins Sean and Amélie, to Portugal's stunning Algarve region. On April 28, 2007, they arrived in Praia da Luz, a small coastal town known for its golden beaches and family-friendly atmosphere. They weren't traveling alone. Close friends had arranged a holiday together at the Ocean Club Resort, a popular destination, perfect for families with young children. For the first few days, everything was idyllic. The children played in the sunshine, splashed in pools, and experienced the joy of a new culture. The group's routine seemed entirely reasonable. During the day, they'd enjoy beach activities, and in evenings, after putting kids to bed, the adults would dine at a nearby tapas restaurant, staying close enough to check on their sleeping children. Portugal's Algarve region in late spring is magical. Warm days give way to mild evenings, perfect for outdoor dining. The McCanns had every reason to believe this would be a wonderful family memory. But as we all know, this story takes a devastating turn that would transform a carefully planned vacation into every parent's worst nightmare. Let me take you through May 3, 2007, minute by minute, because understanding this timeline is crucial to everything that follows. Around 7 p.m., Kate and Jerry began their bedtime routine. Madeleine was read a story by her mother, a quiet moment that would be their last together. The twins were settled in their travel cot, next to Madeleine's bed. All 3 children were put to sleep in the same bedroom, with the window closed and shutters drawn. The apartment door was left slightly ajar, unlocked to allow easy access for planned check-ins. By 8:30 p.m., they'd walked approximately 50 meters to the tapas restaurant where they joined friends for dinner. From their table, they could see their apartment complex clearly. They'd established a system. Every 30 minutes, one adult would check on the children. At 9 p.m., Jerry made the first check. He entered quietly and noticed the bedroom door was more open than before, but the children were sleeping peacefully. He adjusted the door and returned, thinking nothing of it. Around 9:15 p.m., Jane Tanner, another parent in the group, was walking past when she saw something crucial: a man carrying a young child who appeared barefoot and in pajamas. The figure was moving away from the apartment block, but at the time, she didn't raise an alarm. By 9:30 p.m., Matthew Oldfield checked his own children and listened at the McCann apartment door. Everything seemed quiet and normal. The adults continued dinner, completely unaware their world was about to shatter. Then came 10 p.m. Kate left for another routine check, pushed open the bedroom door, and froze. The door was now wide open. The twins still slept peacefully, but Madeleine's bed was empty. The bedroom window, previously closed, was now open. The shutters, drawn for the night, were raised. Kate frantically searched every room, calling Madeleine's name, but found no trace. In panic, she ran back to the restaurant, her cries of, "They've taken her!" piercing the Portuguese night. This moment marked the beginning of a search that continues today. 11 days after Madeleine vanished, Portuguese police made their first major announcement, thrusting an unsuspecting man into the international spotlight. On May 14, 2007, they publicly named Robert Murat as their first official suspect. Robert Murat was an Anglo-Portuguese man with dual citizenship living remarkably close to the Ocean Club resort. This proximity immediately made him a person of interest to investigators desperately seeking any lead. Police conducted thorough searches of his house and swimming pool, questioned friends and neighbors, trying to build a picture of his movements around May 3rd. Despite months of intensive investigation and media scrutiny, no evidence was found linking Murat to Madeleine's disappearance. By 2008, Portuguese authorities officially cleared Robert Murat. But the damage was done. For months, he'd lived under intense international scrutiny. Imagine being at the center of one of the world's most watched investigations, with media from dozens of countries speculating about your involvement in a child's disappearance. After being cleared, Murat spoke about how being named as a suspect affected him and his family. Despite being innocent, he'd been judged by many based on speculation rather than facts. His experience highlights the devastating impact when someone becomes a suspect in the court of public opinion. Murat's case illustrates that when a child disappears, investigators must explore every possible lead. Being named a suspect doesn't mean guilt. It means police are following every angle. Today, his case serves as a reminder of how complex these investigations can be, and how real people's lives can be profoundly affected by the investigative process. In weeks following Madeleine's disappearance, reports flooded in from across Europe and North Africa. The Morocco sightings perfectly illustrate both the promise and peril of witness testimony. In June 2007, Spanish tourist Isabel Gonzalez was traveling through northeast Morocco when she experienced what she believed was a life-changing moment. In Zayo, a town near the Mediterranean coast, she saw a North African woman in traditional clothing with a child that stopped her heart. The little girl had pale skin, slim build, and long blonde hair in a ponytail, wearing a green dress and sandals with a beige head covering. Most alarming, the woman seemed to be dragging the girl, as if the child didn't want to go with her. Isabel was convinced she was looking at Madeleine McCann. She gave detailed statements to authorities, providing specific information about date, time, location, and what she witnessed. But this wasn't the only Morocco sighting. Other reports emerged, though some, like Clara Torres's photograph of a blonde child, were later identified as local Moroccan children. The theory wasn't entirely far-fetched. Geographic routes from southern Portugal to North Africa are well-traveled. Someone could theoretically travel from Portugal to Spain, then ferry to Morocco. These routes are used by smugglers, so infrastructure for such movement exists. However, Moroccan authorities eventually stated they had no reliable evidence showing Madeleine had been in their country. This pattern of reported sightings followed by disappointment would become recurring in the case. The Morocco sightings represent both the best and worst of public involvement, showing worldwide vigilance while illustrating how difficult verification can be. Perhaps no aspect generates more controversy than when Kate and Jerry McCann themselves became the focus of police suspicion. In any missing child case, investigators follow standard protocol, examining the immediate family first, based on statistical reality that when children are harmed, it's often by someone close. By September 2007, both parents were officially named as arguidos under Portuguese law. Police were exploring the theory that Madeleine might have died accidentally and that parents covered up the incident. This theory was driven partly by forensic evidence and puzzling elements that emerged. First, investigators found no clear signs of forced entry or struggle in the apartment. The window was open and shutters raised, but no obvious indications of break-in. Some pointed to perceived inconsistencies in the parents' accounts, though trauma experts consistently note that extreme distress affects memory consistency. The parents' emotional responses also came under scrutiny, revealing something troubling about how we judge people in crisis. Some felt they weren't reacting how grieving parents should react. But there's no handbook for behavior when your child disappears. The media attention was absolutely intense. When parents became suspects, the story reached new levels of international fascination. Throughout this period, Kate and Jerry consistently maintained innocence and cooperated with investigations. Official suspicion lasted until July 2008, when Portuguese prosecutors dropped the case due to lack of evidence. This didn't necessarily prove innocence legally, but meant insufficient proof supported charges. The experience of being suspects in their daughter's disappearance had profound impact, dealing with unimaginable grief while being suspected by those they counted on to find her. Since being cleared, they've continued cooperating with ongoing investigations, supporting Operation Grange and working to keep Madeleine's case public. Their experience serves as sobering reminder of how investigations develop and the personal cost when ordinary people find themselves in extraordinary circumstances. 3 months after Madeleine disappeared, the investigation took a dramatic turn. On August 4, 2007, British sniffer dogs trained to detect human blood and remains were brought to Portugal. What they found became some of the most controversial evidence in the entire investigation. When dogs searched the McCann apartment, they immediately alerted to traces of human blood on a wall. This suggested some form of injury or blood loss had occurred in Madeleine's sleeping room. But they weren't finished. Examining the silver Renault Scenic the family rented on May 27, 2007, 25 days after disappearance, dogs again alerted to human blood and remains in the trunk. DNA analysis confirmed the devastating news. Samples matched Madeleine's DNA. This meant her blood had been present in the vehicle, though providing no explanation for how or why. Investigation revealed the car had been driven extensively throughout Praia da Luz and even into Spain, covering nearly 7,000 miles before being returned September 23, 2007. These discoveries immediately elevated the investigation's seriousness and became key factors in naming the McCanns as suspects. From investigators' perspective, the blood traces and extensive travel required explanation. However, findings became controversial within the scientific community, with questions about collection procedures and contamination. The McCann family consistently denied knowledge of how traces appeared, suggesting apartment evidence could be from previous occupants and car traces from contamination. When Operation Grange launched in 2011, re-examining forensic evidence with modern technology was a priority, though results remained inconclusive. This evidence represents one of the most significant developments, but illustrates physical evidence limitations. The blood traces are facts any theory must account for, but haven't provided the breakthrough investigators desperately need. The controversy highlights broader forensic science issues and how evidence can be interpreted differently by different experts. By 2011, 4 years had passed, and frustration was mounting. Persistent McCann campaigning, combined with public petition and UK Home Secretary intervention, convinced Scotland Yard to take a fresh look. What began as review evolved into Operation Grange, a full-scale investigation costing over £10 million. The scale was unprecedented. British detectives compiled approximately 600 people of interest, systematically narrowing to 41 potential suspects. These were individuals with possible connections, witnesses not fully interviewed, locals in the area, travelers staying in Praia da Luz during relevant periods. British involvement prompted Portuguese authorities to reopen their investigation. In 2014, British detectives traveled to Praia da Luz, conducting systematic searches of scrubland and undeveloped areas with sophisticated equipment and forensic techniques. Unfortunately, extensive searches yielded no significant physical evidence. The investigation involved questioning 11 new individuals connected to the area. By 2016, budget constraints forced difficult decisions. Operation Grange was scaled back from 29 officers to just 4, though UK government provided additional £150,000 to continue on reduced scale. During this period, police investigated specific suspects and theories. One line focused on 3 burglars active in Praia da Luz around Madeleine's disappearance. More troubling, police discovered 5 separate cases involving young British girls sexually abused in Algarve holiday apartments by lone intruders, raising concerns the same individual might be involved. Operation Grange represented important development in international police cooperation, requiring coordination between British, Portuguese, and eventually German authorities. Despite enormous resources, it hasn't provided the breakthrough to solve Madeleine's disappearance, but kept the case active when it might have become cold case status. After 13 years of dead ends, the investigation experienced its most significant development in June 2020. German prosecutors identified Christian Brückner as prime suspect, stating they believed Madeleine was dead, and Brückner was responsible. Brückner is a convicted sex offender with lengthy criminal record, including rape, child sexual abuse, drug trafficking, and theft. Most significantly, in 2019, he was jailed for raping a 72-year-old woman in Praia da Luz in 2005, just 2 years before Madeleine disappeared from the same area. This geographical connection wasn't coincidental. Brückner had been living in Portugal around Madeleine's disappearance, residing in a Volkswagen camper van with Portuguese plates. He also owned a 1993 Jaguar XJR6, which he re-registered in another person's name on May 4, 2007, one day after Madeleine disappeared. The most compelling evidence involves telecommunications data. Cell phone records show on the night Madeleine vanished, Brückner received a 30-minute call ending at 7:32 p.m. Geolocation data placed his phone very close to apartment 5A within 5 minutes of when Madeleine disappeared. The path to identifying Brückner wasn't straightforward. First tip came in 2013, another in 2017, but concrete evidence needed time to assemble. In April 2022, Portuguese prosecutors officially named Brückner as arguido, confirming his official link to the case in all 3 countries involved. While cell phone data is compelling and Brückner's background significant, investigators still lack definitive forensic proof placing him inside the apartment or directly connecting him to Madeleine. Brückner has remained silent about allegations, with lawyers arguing evidence is insufficient for prosecution. The identification represents the most significant development since disappearance, providing focus and hope the mystery might be solved. However, it illustrates challenges of building prosecutable cases where having a suspect isn't the same as having conviction evidence. We've reached the end of our Madeleine McCann deep dive, a case that turned a family holiday into one of the world's longest, most perplexing missing person investigations. With Christian Brückner named as the prime suspect, fresh cell phone data and his presence in Praia da Luz have sharpened the focus. But the night itself still keeps its secrets. Could the key evidence be hiding in a tiny detail investigators have overlooked? There's at least one lead that hasn't been fully publicized, and it changes how you see the timeline and the people involved. Download the Scoob app now to get access to the full story, extended evidence breakdowns, exclusive interviews, and a downloadable timeline that ties the clues together. Unlock bonus audio clips and documents we couldn't fit into the episode. Thanks for listening. Stay curious. We'll be back with more deep, unmissable investigations soon.